So in this video, I really want to talk to you guys about how to choose an ayahuasca retreat, how to really feel confident that you're choosing the retreat that is really best for you or the center that is best for you. There's so many options out there, but as someone who has worked at an ayahuasca retreat center, I feel like I was able to really kind of see from my own perspective, but also see from many other people's perspectives what they're looking for, what the right questions to ask are, what is really important to look out for in a center. If you're looking for someone to just tell you where to go, I'm sorry, but that is not what I'm gonna be doing here. I think that everyone is so different and there are so many things to factor into the equation that I can't just sit here and tell you where to go, because what might work for me might not work for someone else. The best retreat center for me might not be the best retreat center for you. My intention with this video is to give you the information, give you the thoughts, the questions, the concepts to consider and to think about for yourself, or maybe the questions that you can ask the retreat center or the facilitators so that you can make this choice in the most intentional and informed way possible. Before we get into the details of choosing a center, I just want to say really quickly that if you are here watching this video, I think you probably already know a little bit about what ayahuasca is. That being said, if you're someone who just kind of landed on this video, you're intrigued, but you don't know what ayahuasca actually is, I do have another video about myself working at an ayahuasca retreat center, and I kind of break down what ayahuasca is in detail in that video. So I recommend checking that out if you have other questions. In that video, I really dive into some ideas and some of the lessons that I learned from working at an ayahuasca retreat center. So I will link that here for you and you can check that video out as well. Let's go ahead and get into the 10 things to consider when choosing your ayahuasca retreat center. The first thing to think about or consider when you're looking to choose a center to go to might seem like, oh, that doesn't really matter for the retreat space, but I promise you this does make a really big difference. And this is simply understanding your own intention for this retreat, understanding what it is that you are looking to achieve with ayahuasca. So this could be healing, maybe some trauma that you've experienced in the past that you're looking to heal from, or just general healing. Maybe it's physical healing. Maybe you're looking to work with addiction or clarity. Maybe you're looking to really find your purpose in life. Maybe you are diving into spirituality and you are wanting to understand more about the universe and why you're here. What is it that you are actually looking to change or achieve or embody with this ayahuasca experience? And the reason that this matters and actually does make a difference is because different retreat centers and different spaces might be able to better support you with different things. So let's say that your intention involves emotional healing or maybe spiritual growth or just self-growth in general. Then you might really be interested in an ayahuasca retreat that also includes therapeutic sessions or maybe coaching or yoga or breath work or meditation classes alongside the ayahuasca sessions as well. So that could be something to look out for. Maybe you are interested in truly diving into and exploring shamanic wisdom. Like maybe you feel that is part of your path, is to go deeper than just experience ayahuasca. Maybe you want to work with the medicine one day or understand indigenous wisdom even deeper. And so in that case, of course, you are probably going to want to attend a retreat that is in that kind of traditional space, in the Amazon, in the jungle, with traditional Shipibo shamans or whatever it may be. So the questions that you can ask yourself here would be, number one, what are my intentions? What are my goals moving forward or working with ayahuasca? Or what specific outcomes am I seeking? And what might best support me in the space to really achieve those outcomes? Just hone in on your intentions, on your goals, and what kind of retreat space might best support that. And I will put all of these, I'll put all of these questions and thoughts that you can consider down in the information box below, so you don't have to write it all down or memorize any of this. It will all be there for you. The next thing for you to consider is going to be cultural considerations. Consider whether you personally prefer a more traditional setting when it comes to your ayahuasca experience, or maybe a more modern setting, or maybe a little bit of a fusion of the two. For someone who might prefer that more traditional setting, that might mean that you are looking to attend a retreat center in one of the countries that borders the Amazon or surrounds the Amazon rainforest, because this is where ayahuasca is actually indigenous to. So, whether it is Bolivia, Peru, Venezuela, Ecuador, Brazil, I think I just got all 5 of them. One of those countries may be where you want to go because you want to have that authentic experience. You want to maybe work with shamans who are indigenous to the tribes that have worked with ayahuasca for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So if that is what you are looking for, you may go in that direction. Someone who is more interested in a modern setting, at that point, you really can kind of go everywhere or anywhere. That being said, I really, really want to make a little note here. Please be cautious, especially if you are going to be looking to work with ayahuasca in a place where either it's not legal or in a place where you might not necessarily be working with indigenous shamans. There are so many incredible healers and shamans from different backgrounds, so I'm certainly not saying that you have to work with anyone in particular. However, I do know that as ayahuasca has become more commercialized and monetized, you just have to be really careful who you put your trust into. And ayahuasca is such a transformative experience. It's imperative that you are able to trust your shamans and your facilitators. So please, please, please avoid just, jumping into the first retreat that you find because it's next door and it's accessible. Like, if you know the people and you trust them, absolutely. But I've had people ask me this question before, like, I don't have the money, I can't travel, I can't get to one of those places, how can I just do it in the town that I live in? Or can I order ayahuasca online? And please don't do that. Please don't order ayahuasca online. You don't know what you're gonna get. You have no idea what's really in that brew if you order it online. And it is incredibly important that you are with someone who is trained, preferably for years, even decades, in working with this really powerful medicine. So anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. I apologize. It's so important. So if you are someone who doesn't necessarily mind whether it's traditional or not, that's totally okay. But do make sure that if you are working with ayahuasca in a more modern setting, that the shamans and the facilitators are still very, very, very well trained. Another thing to think about in this kind of modern versus traditional setting, along with the space itself and the shamans, and where they might come from, is that it can also have an effect on, how the ceremony is run. So I'll give you an example. The ayahuasca retreat that I worked at in Peru, because we worked with traditional Shipibo shamans, they sang Icaros in ceremony. And Icaros are the medicine songs, the channeled songs that come through from the spirit of the plants and the spirit of ayahuasca. And so that's a very traditional part of an ayahuasca ceremony. That being said, if you are in a ceremony that is run by maybe different types of shamans who are from a different country or a different indigenous tribe. Maybe they won't be working with Icaros. Maybe they will be singing a different type of medicine songs, or maybe they'll even just be, singing kind of spiritual songs, playing music, live music, even playing songs over the speakers. I have myself attended an ayahuasca retreat where the shamans were from Israel, and they were playing live music and playing songs over the speakers. And it was incredible. It was absolutely amazing. It was not traditional necessarily, but it was just as powerful. And I believe that was because the shamans were still incredibly well trained, had worked with the medicine for decades. And the intention was pure and the integrity was there, right? So there is no right answer. At the end of the day, it's just what resonates with you and making sure that you find safe and reputable shamans and facilitators to work with. So that is the next thing to think about, and some questions that you can ask yourself here. Are you drawn to a more traditional shamanic setting, or are you interested in maybe a more modern or integrated approach? Do you want to work with shamans who are indigenous to the region where ayahuasca comes from? Does the retreat respect and honor the cultural traditions associated with ayahuasca? And I kind of forgot to mention this earlier, so I'll make a little baby side note here. With this kind of recent development and growth, shall we say, in people looking into ayahuasca retreat centers, into working with ayahuasca, it's really important that the cultures and the people who are actually indigenous to working with ayahuasca are not exploited or taken advantage of. Something that I have seen with retreat centers is that, unfortunately, they might be working with traditional healers, traditional shamans, or maybe they're employing the local community to work in the kitchen staff, in the cleaning staff, whatever it may be, and they might be exploiting or taking advantage of those people, whether it is monetarily, not paying them properly, whatever it might look like. We would not have access to these medicines without them. And it's really a profound gift and something that really we should be giving back to those cultures, giving back to those populations rather than taking from them. And yeah, unfortunately, I've seen this many times where these retreat centers are bringing in a lot of money. I mean, these ayahuasca retreats are not necessarily inexpensive, and the people who work there are getting paid next to nothing, or just getting paid what maybe they would normally get paid in a country like Peru or in a country like, whatever it is, when realistically they could get paid a lot more considering what the retreat center is bringing in. We are gaining so much from this incredibly powerful medicine. How are we giving back in return? That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. So a question that you could ask here when you're reaching out to different retreat centers is, how do you practice cultural and sacred reciprocity? How are you giving back to those communities? How are you giving back to the indigenous people who are really allowing us to heal with this incredible medicine? How does your retreat center contribute positively to the local community or to the local indigenous population? The next thing to consider is going to be the retreat space itself. And when I say the retreat space, what I mean here is location and also accommodations, facilities. So we kind of touched on this a little bit with like jungle versus, sacred valley versus wherever it is that you may be. But it is really important to consider location for some people. For some, it might not really matter, but this just depends on the person, and this is something for you to consider yourself. So if you are someone that cannot stand extreme heat, you might not want to be in the jungles of the Amazon. You might want to be somewhere with more of a temperate climate. Another thing to consider with a place like Peru, for example, and I use this example because this is where I lived and where I worked, but if you go to, say, the Sacred Valley, the altitude is really high. And for most people, this was not a huge issue. Maybe the first day or the first couple days, it can be a little bit more challenging breathing or, walking up flights of stairs, and then you get used to it. But if you're someone that has certain health conditions, that could be more challenging for you. So maybe you want to avoid going to a place with a super intense or crazy high altitude. So that's just an example. Another thing to consider here, like I said, are the accommodations. So the type of room that you're interested in. Do you want a single room or do you want a shared room? And what are the options there? Bathrooms, right? Are there actually bathrooms in your room? Is that a deal breaker? If not, that's really something to consider, because not all of these centers, have the same types of facilities. Is there hot water or is there not hot water? Gym, pool, do you want there to be a pool? How much space do you want? So the reason that I bring this up is that in some retreat centers, you're not allowed to leave the center itself, right? Like it might be gated off or it might be in a private space, and in the time of your retreat, you might not be allowed to leave for the safety of the guests. Now, this is going to totally depend on where you are, but that is something to consider as well. If you're somebody who likes to go on really long walks every day, you probably don't want to be at a retreat center that you can't leave. Okay, so the questions to ask here: do you prefer a jungle environment or a different kind of setting? Do you want to be in the Amazon or do you prefer some other type of atmosphere? Are you comfortable with the climate and the environment of the specific location that you are looking at? Is travel to a potentially remote location even feasible for you? That's something to think about as well. What facilities are important to you? What accommodations are you looking for? And again, you may want to ask the retreat center if you're allowed to leave the space, if you are someone that likes to go on walks, and what the surrounding space looks like, just for you to really know that you would be safe if that is something that you decided to do. All right, the next thing to consider, I think we're on number 4 at this point, are safety and legal considerations. It is imperative that you are working with highly trained shamans and facilitators. Indigenous shaman often has studied and worked with ayahuasca for years, if not decades, if not most of their life. Some of the shamans that we worked with, were in their 60s and they had been working with ayahuasca since they were like 10 years old. And I want to really say that I understand that there are also going to be some incredible healers and shamans out there who might not necessarily have lived or grown up in the Amazon. Maybe they come from a different space. There's shamans from all cultures. So I'm not saying that they have to be from the Amazon, but it is important that they are trained, that they know how to work with the medicine. The shamans are holding the space. They are protecting the space. And while you are working with ayahuasca and you are in a very different space of consciousness, you are not necessarily in the space where you can protect yourself from what might be happening energetically or from what might be happening in the space around you. So it's super, super important that the shamans are able to hold and protect that space. And same thing with the facilitators. Also make sure that the retreat center offers proper screening, proper medical intake. So before you even go to the retreat, someone should be calling you and going through a medical intake form with you, asking you the right kinds of questions, asking you about your medical background and contraindications that you might have with the medicine or whatever it may be. So be very, very, very wary of a center that does not offer proper medical screening or medical intake forms. That is definitely something to look out for. So questions that you can ask yourself or questions that you can ask to the retreat center. What is the experience of the shamans? How many years have they been working with the medicine? What is the experience of the facilitators and how are they trained? Are there medical screenings or even any kind of additional support provided for guests who may have pre-existing conditions? And then finally, what is the ratio of shamans and facilitators to guests? And the reason that this is really important is because you will see in some retreat centers that there's one or maybe two shamans, a couple facilitators, and then a group of 80 people. And that is just insane. This does not happen often. This is not a common thing, but it happens. And it's just not, it's really not even possible to properly take care of that amount of people when you only have that number of shamans and facilitators. So if something starts to happen, they can't support everyone properly. The groups that we used to have where I worked were somewhere in the realm of like usually 12 to 18. And I think once you start to get too much bigger than that, like, I don't know, maybe past 25, let's say, it does start to get challenging to give the kind of support that is needed to a group that size. And the energy just gets kind of crazy also. Like the more people you have, the more hectic the energy can be at times. What I found and what I noticed is that most people really preferred those groups that were a little bit smaller, like maybe 16 or under. I've been in groups that were 20 to 25 and it was still absolutely amazing. But I do think that there's something to be said for the smaller groups and for just that kind of more intimate group setting. So ask your retreat center how many people there are going to be in the retreat or what their maximum group size is. The next thing that you want to think about is the medicine itself, the ayahuasca brew, and also any additional medicines that might be used at the retreat center, because it's not always just ayahuasca. So starting with ayahuasca, it is super important that the center is transparent and honest about, it's like a little fuzzy, blowing in the wind, what they are putting in the brew. You want to see what ingredients they are putting in the brew. A super traditional ayahuasca brew is going to be made with the ayahuasca vine and the chacruna leaf, and those are the two ingredients, and it's amazing and wonderful. There are some brews that might include some additional herbs or some additional ingredients, but your retreat center should be able to be honest and transparent with you about that. So do just make sure you ask what they are putting in their brew. You might also want to ask what additional medicines are used. Alongside ayahuasca, some medicines that are common, depending on the center that you go to, could be rapé. Speaking of rapé, very, very, very quick little side note here that I almost forgot to mention, which I can't believe because this is so amazing. But for any of you who have been to an ayahuasca retreat or maybe worked with some different plant medicines, you probably have heard of rapé. Rapé is a type of tobacco medicine that oftentimes is used alongside other medicines. It can be really, really grounding. Oftentimes it's in powder form. It can be in liquid form, but oftentimes in powder form. And yeah, it's a really grounding medicine. Oftentimes people will use it before ceremonies or to ground in the space of ceremony. And my amazing, amazing, beautiful friend, Sam, who lives in Australia, has just sent me this beautiful rapé box. And he makes these himself. I hope you can see how absolutely beautiful the box is. But he makes these and he works with rapé and has started to make the boxes and the applicators, which is just insane. I don't know if you can see the detail in this box and the detail on the applicator itself, but it's super, super beautiful. So this is the applicator. For those of you who have worked with rapé, you'll know, but if you haven't, this is what the general kind of design might look like, but this is like above and beyond amazing. So the reason that I wanted to show you this, oh, let me show you too. In the box design, he has also put little bottles of rapé, and he has bigger boxes as well. So you can kind of see that. But he has just started this business and I love and adore him and wanted to support him as much as I possibly can, because I think that anybody who's living their dream and following what lights up their heart and spreading medicine and love with other people, I want to support that. So I wanted to share this with you guys. If you are someone who uses rapé, or maybe you're interested in using rapé in the space of ceremonies, I will link Sam's information for you in this video. And you can follow Sam and you can get your own little Hapé applicator and Hapé box from him. So Sam, I love you. Thank you for this beautiful gift. It's incredible. And yeah, if you're someone who is interested in one of these beautiful, beautiful boxes, then I will have Sam's information linked in the information box below. Some other ones, Bufo, which is a 5-MeO DMT. This is a medicine that comes from a toad. This is not super common, but this is offered at some ayahuasca retreat centers. A super, super common one is Wachuma or San Pedro, which is a cactus medicine. This is one of my favorite medicines, and I actually believe that this pairs really beautifully with ayahuasca. So some people want to keep it super clean and pure and just work with ayahuasca, but I do think that Wachuma or San Pedro is a really, really nice pairing. So if that's something that you see offered at a retreat center, I personally love that, but obviously this is something that it's just important for you to think about. Do you want to solely work with ayahuasca and the spirit of ayahuasca, or are you open to working with different medicines? Peyote, maybe if you're, for example, in Mexico, they might offer peyote, which is another cactus medicine, and also mapacho. And mapacho is just sacred tobacco. And this is very, very common to have mapacho at ayahuasca retreat centers, to have even the shamans maybe smoking mapacho in the middle of the ceremony. So just another thing for you to be aware of, and just something to ask if it's something that you're curious about. Sort of along these lines as well, you may want to ask what is used to cleanse your system before you work with ayahuasca, because oftentimes these different centers might do some sort of cleansing, such as a vomitivo, where you're drinking a sort of tea or lemongrass mixture, and that is allowing you to purge before you work with ayahuasca. Some centers might work with combo. That is quite the purge. So again, it's just stuff for you to be aware of. It's just questions that you can ask the centers to allow yourself to be as educated and informed as possible before you just walk into this space, not necessarily knowing what you're walking into. Some questions that you can ask the center when you reach out to them: what brew do you use with ayahuasca? So what plants have you included in the brew? What other medicines do you include at the center, and are they optional? Are you paying extra for them? What does that look like? And what do you use to cleanse the system before the retreat? And again, I know I mentioned this, but all of these questions are going to be in the information box below. All right, number 6, we've touched on this one a little bit as well, but this is going to be group size and atmosphere of the group. So the group aspect of an ayahuasca ceremony, in my opinion, is one of the most incredible aspects of this experience in general. Like the people that you will meet, the connections that you will make, the bonds that you will form from such a short amount of time. The connection aspect of ayahuasca is one of the greatest gifts that I've received from this medicine. Just the people that I've met along the way, it blows my mind every time that I think about it. But maybe not everyone is looking for that, and that's absolutely okay. Again, it is something for you to ask yourself and something for you to think about. So some people might be really wanting that, looking for more connection, more friendship. You know, that might be a big part of their own intention. And so for that person, a larger group or a focus on that kind of community might be really important to them. At the same time, there may be some people who just really want that time and space for themselves, and they want to be really internal. And so maybe they want a smaller group size, or the group size doesn't necessarily matter to them as much. Again, like I mentioned before, the bigger the group, it can be a little bit crazier in ceremony, and it's super, super important that there are enough facilitators and at least like several shamans if there's going to be a larger group size. Whereas with the smaller group size, it could be totally okay to have just 1 or 2 shamans and a couple facilitators, and that is going to be enough support for everyone. So the question that you can ask yourself here is, do you prefer a smaller, more intimate group setting, or are you interested in maybe a larger group setting and that community aspect and meeting lots of people? So what are you looking for there? And then of course, the question that you can ask the retreat center is, what is their average group size and what is their maximum group size? The next one, number 7, is just to think about activities. What activities are you interested in the retreat center providing or having as an option in their schedule. I am not going to go through this in detail. I'm literally just going to list off some things for you to think about. You can ask the retreat center if they offer these activities and just think about what it is that you're interested in. So it could be yoga classes, it could be meditation or breath work, it could be art therapy, could be hiking or some sort of excursion. So the retreat center that I worked at offered an optional excursion to Machu Picchu after the retreat. Is that something that you might be interested in? Some centers might have massage therapists on site that you can pay extra for, or maybe it's even included in your package. So I would recommend asking the retreat center what kind of activities they have on the schedule and what is mandatory and what is optional. Number 8, dietary and preparation guidelines. I actually have an entire video, actually 2 videos on the ayahuasca diet. I have a video on the pre-ayahuasca diet and the post-ayahuasca diet. So I'm not going to dive into this in too much detail. You can check those out if you would like. But pretty much every ayahuasca retreat is going to have some sort of traditional ayahuasca diet or some sort of diet that is allowing you to cleanse and keep your body really clean as you are working with this medicine. I would recommend asking the center what kind of diet they provide, what kind of food are they providing during the retreat. Many ayahuasca centers also recommend a diet before the retreat itself. And so that's something for you to ask them and talk to them about before you actually go to the retreat and go and attend your ceremonies. So the things that you want to think about here, or the questions that you might want to ask. Number 1, does the retreat support you in preparation or guidelines for the diet before the ceremony itself, or any other kind of preparation? You know, it could be even journaling prompts or maybe a preparation call. There are some retreat centers that have a one-on-one call with participants before the retreat itself to kind of walk through what your intentions might be. So preparation guidelines, preparation call, and what other kind of preparation support is provided by the retreat center. And just as important, if not more important than preparation support, is integration support. This is huge. So this is number 9, we're almost there. And this is all about the integration support that the retreat provides. Your ayahuasca experience does not end when the ceremony ends, when the retreat ends. I promise you, there have been ceremonies that I have been integrating what feels like for my entire life. But yeah, there are definitely some ceremonies that have taken me a long time to integrate. The integration support is so crucial, whether that is one-on-one calls afterwards to discuss what's been coming up for you. Maybe there's a community kind of integration support, like maybe they have group calls with the group that you actually participated with, and that could be really cool. Post-ceremony support, follow-up discussions, coaching calls, anything like that. Just ask the center what kind of support they offer in terms of integration after your ayahuasca retreat. Finally, last but not least, number 10 is testimonials and reviews. And this is not going to be the end all be all, but it can be really helpful. Look for ayahuasca retreat centers that do have feedback. No one is going to be perfect. No retreat center is going to be perfect. I promise you, there's always going to be at least one person who leaves like an absolute shit review and says that they had the worst time of their life and that everyone sucked. But that is just human nature, and that's totally okay. So if there are a lot of really amazing reviews and then there's like the one-off, don't be afraid, it's okay. But look for the consistencies, look for the themes, look for, the consistent feedback that shows that it is a safe and supportive environment. You'll often see people talking about the fact that it changed their lives and they went through this really incredible transformative experience, and they'll talk about the facilitators, they'll talk about the shamans. So just read and trust your intuition when you're reading these reviews. Like, you'll kind of feel into it. You'll feel into the energy and you'll start to notice what centers you yourself are feeling attracted to or drawn to. Something to look out for here, I will say, in this kind of like review world is you might find articles online that are like the 10 best ayahuasca retreats in the world. Something to know is oftentimes on these lists that are like the 10 best, those retreat centers have paid or had some sort of deal to actually be on that list. So just be aware of that, that's often the case. And again, you're better off reading authentic reviews from people who have actually been there. So some good review sites, other than just reading the Google reviews for the center itself, Aya Advisors is a good one, and you can find so many different retreat centers on there. Aya Advisors, I'll put that in the information box, but they have all kinds of really honest reviews. And also Reddit. Reddit is an amazing space to look for people who have talked about their experience and shared, wherever it is that they went and what that was like for them. And people are oftentimes a little bit more honest on a space like Reddit than they might be in the Google review. So that is a good place to look as well. Okay, I think that is everything. I don't know how long this video ended up being, and I just really want to be able to help you guys as much as possible to make an informed and just make a choice for yourself that feels good for you. And that is the most important thing. Like, choosing an ayahuasca retreat center can feel really intense and feel really scary, but at the end of the day, go through this list, ask the right questions, but just trust your intuition. I really, really believe that most people end up exactly where they're meant to be, and you will end up exactly where you're meant to be. So trust yourself, trust your intuition. Remember that the right ayahuasca retreat is the right one for you. It is the one that aligns with your intentions and what you are looking to achieve and change. So there is no perfect place. There is only what is perfect and right for you. Thank you so much, as always, for your kindness and your support. And until next time, I will see you in the next video.